right, welcome back to All Bets Are Off. It's time for Reggie's Wrap, a new thing that we're going to do here on All Bets Are Off on Monday when we get to sit down and talk to Reggie Langhorne, former wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns. It's brought to you by Pat O'Brien Chevrolet. And you know what, Reg? I've been waiting all show so I can sit here and talk to you because we've had fans go back and forth about last week at this point in time. Nobody wanted to even put a Brown shirt on.
Absolutely.
You see what offense can do to people?
Offense sells tickets, and people get excited. And what Richardson did yesterday was quite impressive. We got a chance to see Wheaton step up in the pocket and make some throws, so it looks brighter for this offense. Yeah,
well, you bring up Richardson, and I think, unfortunately, I hate to say it this way, we all expected Richardson.
Absolutely.
The game he had, no one walked away and goes, oh, man, I can't believe he... It was just nice to see it because we've seen him do that at Alabama. Obviously, with the quarterback and Brandon Whedon, and in this town, I feel like we're like, and I hate to put it this, we're like the beaten wife when it comes to quarterbacks since '99.
Right.
We don't know what to trust. We don't know who to believe. We've had all these different gurus come in here, and I felt yesterday when we walked away from that game, I said, I don't care who comes on TV or radio. I saw with my own eyes a guy that can play quarterback in the NFL.
You know, in the first week I was the same way. I was a little bit skittish about him in the preseason. Then he didn't play the fourth game. Like, this guy needs reps. And then you go back to the first game, how horrible it was. And then yesterday he stepped up into pursuers coming on him. He took defenders. I mean, the guy did a nice job in doing what an NFL quarterback is capable of doing. It's nice to see a young guy stand up. Now, you know, you got 14 more weeks.
Yes. Well, Reg, he said something after the game yesterday, and I thought was really very telling. Pat Shermer kind of said, he goes, look, with Richardson and Wheaton, they can get off the bus 5 times a year in college and they would win.
Right.
And Whedon said after the game, he goes, I went to sleep every night studying plays. I'm not saying they didn't study hard leading up to week 1, but I think you could tell fans out there more so than I could or anyone else. There's a lot mentally that these guys had to get ready for. And I think Brandon Whedon, more than the physical things, mentally he was ready to play yesterday.
Well, one thing about the NFL, absolutely you need the athletic ability to do it. But a lot of the older guys are already into the schemes of what's going on. They played these teams before, against these players before. They're ahead of the curve. We've got a lot of young players on our football team right now. And when you're teaching that, it takes more time for them to understand it. That's what they call being a good pro. So that's something that's going to have to transpire with this team. I saw it yesterday with special teams. There's a lot of guys we have playing these positions that when they were in college, they were starting running backs and defensive backs and linebackers. They didn't play special teams. You know, my first year in the league here, I played special teams for 4 years. So these guys got to get adjusted to playing special teams.
All right. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because obviously we can go back through the game, and when you lose by 7, it's easy to say. And I can write down 3 plays. Obviously, the 81-yard punt return.
Yes. It's
in the beginning of the game. That's like being in a heavyweight fight and getting caught with a punch.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think you go 3 and out, you give up the punt return, you miss 6 tackles on it. But like you said, a lot of guys that are missing those tackles, this is probably the second, third time they've ever been on a punt team because you can't practice what a punt is in the NFL. With NFL guys, you can't practice it until you get on the field.
Yeah, I played receiver for 4 years in college, and the next thing I know, I was on the punt coverage team. So I would have been one of those guys trying to make a tackle on a guy who hadn't made a tackle since high school.
Right. You know? So that play, the other 2 plays, and we got to look at the defense because obviously they played so well the week before against Michael Vick, and then last week they struggled yesterday. But there's 2 plays that stand out to me, and we can talk about missing Joe Hayden, and they obviously missed Joe Hayden.
Absolutely.
But you hold A.J. Green to 68 yards, I believe, on 7 catches.
Right.
I think, Reggie, if I would have called you yesterday and said at 12:45, hey, man, A.J. Green's only going to get 68 yards, I think both of us would say, we got a good chance to win.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
the problem is you had Hawkins had the 48-yard touchdown, and you had the 50-yard touchdown to Tate. When he got a matchup, I'm sure as a receiver, you would have gone, it was a safety. They basically zero blitz. They had safety on.
You love those. You love those. You know, this guy can't cover me.
Right, and you can tell that's how Brandon Tate went up to the line and goes, oh, there's nobody behind you?
You sure you want to be here?
Right. But once again, going to a young team in a situation where maybe if Hag's in his 3rd or 4th, 5th year, maybe they get out of that defense when they see they went 3 wide to that side.
Right. Well, there's a lot of times with young personnel, you got to realize where the help is coming from. And when you got all that field and you're the middle guy in the slot, it's too free for a wide receiver. You can't cover a guy one-on-one with the whole field. A lot of teams call it zero coverage. In other words, you're man up, you're blitzing, and this guy's got time because they're using max protection to pick up the blockers. Trouble. Yeah,
it is trouble. And I think with all here's the thing. Rookies. You have 16 rookies on this team. It's one of the youngest teams in the NFL.
Wow.
I don't like losing, so I don't want people to think that I'm okay with losing. But if you commit to this many rookies, and obviously, and Reggie, you know, I don't want to say turmoil, but the owner's riding the bus, from the hotel to the field before games.
He wants to know what's going on.
Right.
I like it.
And you like that?
I like it.
Okay, now as a player, how would you feel if you got, because I've been on those team buses before you go over to the field. You know this better than I do. There's certain types of guys that go on the first bus.
I was on the second bus.
And there's certain guys go on the second bus. You get what I'm saying.
But after meeting Mr. Haslam the other night, there was an autograph session at the stadium. Webster came in town, Bernie, myself, Hanford, Kevin Mack, and Mr. Haslam came right in and sat down right beside us. Started cutting the jive with us. So I said, you know what, I wouldn't mind playing for this guy. Just his natural flow in the crowd of ex-athletes.
He's a guy's guy.
That's the guy I want to play for. Not a guy who slipped into the situation and is glad to have it but doesn't really care. But a guy says, you know what, I'm going to take this, and the only way to do is grab the bull by the horns and find out what's going in from the top to the bottom, what he likes, what he doesn't. He's a smart enough man to know I need my people in place so I get it done my way. Right,
and another thing I'll tell you about him that I've learned, if you talk to him about a player, one player, he will remember. He remembers that he came because he came back to me, and I won't say the player's name. I saw him at family night, and we brought up a player, a younger player, and he goes, "Well, I'll watch and see." I saw him 2 weeks later. He comes right up to me and
give
goes,
you the rundown,
everything. And I instantly go, "Man, if I'm Tom Heckert, I better have my stuff together." Now, from the player's perspective, I think you're right. I think the players are getting to know him. That gets you fired up to play for a guy like that.
You know, a lot of folks want to hear about Art Modell, but it was I guess a learning curve when Art first would come out to practice when I was a rookie. He would come out on Fridays. He never would shake my hand, never paid me any attention. Pretty much until you earn the right to shake the owner's hand, you know, you go null and void. He would shake Kevin's and Ozzy's and Hanford's and stuff like that. Year 2 and 3, when I'm playing a little bit, I said, "Oh, Mr. Modell, come say how you doing, sir?" You know, it's just the way. But this new owner has taken another approach. He's going to learn from his young guys and grow with them, and that's a good experience for a young player to have faith in his owner and know that when it gets tight, he got somebody he can count on.
Now, I've gone back and forth with a couple people with this. Player-wise, I think having Haslam around is great. Now, as a coach, I think at first, when this first went down, Pat Shurmur, he seemed a little shook.
You were an intern from here on out.
Basically,
you're an intern.
But Reggie, I'll say this: in knowing that Haslam now is showing up to team meetings on Saturday before games, he's showing up on the team bus on Sundays. If I'm Pat Shurmur and my life, or my job is on the line, wouldn't you rather the guy that's getting ready to make the choice on my life? Why actually see me work? Because there's nothing, anybody out there, there's nothing worse than being fired by a person that doesn't even know who you are.
It's better to be seen than heard. In other words, he does the due diligence of getting his players prepared to play, how he structured his schedule, how they're ready to play, the injured players are ready to come back much sooner. How he runs the organization as a head coach will be judged by Mr. Haslam come end of the year. And wins and losses may play a major factor, but I think the organizational part of it, and Shurmur's good at it, I think he can slide and maybe get another opportunity to coach these young guys again.
I agree, because I think what happens in this situation is, I think if you're Pat Shurmur, you're going, come in here and find out the real situation. Come out and know, how many young guys or what we're planning on doing, or why. Find out why it's happening. Because I think today, if you're Mr. Haslam and you're down in Tennessee, you can probably sit back and go, okay, this may not be my #1 choice as a coach, but I respect what he's doing and how he's trying to put this together. Because if he just stayed down in Tennessee for this whole season and watched on TV, I don't think you get that same fairness in the question when you go through it.
I agree.
Now, in all of that, when you look at it with Tom Heckert, you look at, and I think we all think Holmgren is going to be out and all those other things. Have you seen growth in Pat Shurmur from year 1 to year 2?
Well, I'm having a problem with the clock management in the second quarter. 2 situations in both games. I'm a little bit weary of how they're handling things, the 2-point conversion. There's little things that I don't want to nitpick about it because I like him as a man. When I got a chance to meet him, I want to give him a fair shot. I know the cards were stacked against him when he first got here with the holdout, the short season, Colt becoming a starter the first time. So there's a lot of variables that played against him. But let's give him a fair shot, and I'll go week by week. So every week I'll come back next Monday, and I'll tell you what I think next week. But right now, I'm going to say the offense scored points. They didn't turn the ball over. They did a nice job in what the plans were, except for Obenau's fumble. Other than that, I think they did a sound job and put 27 points, which I think was the most they scored. They
didn't score that much last year.
Okay.
They scored over 20 points once last year.
Improvement.
That's improvement.
Check.
Now, the other thing that he did, and I got to mention this, there's a lot of talk. Obviously, Joe Hayden was out for the problems that he had. We knew that was coming. Sheldon Brown, now, I want to be careful how I say this. He had a stinger last week against Philadelphia is what it was called. And if anybody's had a stinger, it's a pain that shoots up through your neck and everything else. I know Sheldon Brown pretty well. And I know during preseason, Sheldon said to me, he goes, I don't know what a concussion is. I'm not saying I don't know what his injury was. But they put him on the field yesterday for one play to continue his consecutive game streak. he wasn't healthy enough. From what I've gathered, he wasn't healthy enough to play.
Right.
And it may be a shoulder injury or whatever else. I'm not even really bringing that all up for that. But I thought it was very telling with all these young guys on the team that Pat Shurmur would keep one spot for Sheldon Brown to get that one play in. To me, if you want guys to run through a wall for you, you do little things like that and take care of a veteran like Sheldon Brown.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I mean, if that's what they're shooting for to get him his consecutive starts, that's nice. But we're not in a world championship run. He's not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson. Those are guys who do things for. Sheldon Brown's been here for a few years. Yeah, it's nice to get his streak going,
right.
but that's not more important if they to run a go route in the first play and got burnt.
Right. No, you're right.
Okay.
But as a player,
I like it as a player.
See, and that's where I'm trying to explain it, because you're right. As if they lose the game because Sheldon Brown's out there and he can't play, then it's a problem.
Right.
But I think what he was I think what Shurmur was really doing was saying, hey, I asked you guys to really follow Sheldon Brown in the locker room.
Right.
This is my little thing I'm going to give back to him.
Right.
Is what I took that as yesterday.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I like it.
Now, in saying that today, he did kind of come out and say, he goes, look, Sheldon Brown's role is going to change as we go throughout this season. And I know everybody's been beating up on Buster's screen today. I mean, yeah, when you put out a couple of young cornerbacks as a receiver,
absolutely,
you're ready to go. I can't blame the game, though, all in one. I had a guy call me earlier and go, they would have won if Joe Hayden would have played. Well, maybe, but Joe Hayden gave up bigger games against A.J. Green last year. Didn't he?
Absolutely.
Twice he did that. So
everybody wants to point the finger somewhere, and I always go back to it. You win at the point of attack. If you can run the football and stop the run, you win football games. And obviously, we didn't do enough of that to a win yesterday.
Right. What do you say? What do you think about Joe Hayden's situation, though? I mean, because you, Reggie, you know what it's like to be a football player.
Now, tell me, there is antihistamine, or what exactly? What is it?
It supposedly speeds you up, and
you know we're talking live, so you tell me. Now, what exactly did that drug do?
And supposedly it keeps you up, wakes you up a little bit, gives you a pep to your step. Basically, it's what they say it does.
Right.
Now, the scary part about this, in my opinion, if it would have been marijuana,
right,
it'd have been cocaine, he would have got basically a slap on the wrist, and it would have, and they would have put him in the program.
Right.
But they have Adderall in this section of steroids and stimulants to help you prepare. That's not what he was doing. The question I really have for you, though, Joe. Joe has become.
Right.
He reminds me of when you guys played, where you guys were part of our fabric. Yeah, he would have fit with you guys.
Absolutely.
But this situation now, a lot of people weren't that angry, Reggie, with Joe Hayden last week at this time. But yesterday at 4 o'clock, man, the venom was coming. What would you tell Joe Hayden in this situation? How do you come back and apologize, or do you just come back and play?
The only way to go about things like this for Joe to be Joe, and Joe feels like he wants to come clean and say exactly what the situation was, that's fine with me. If Joe keeps his keeps quiet about it and just goes on and plays football, as long as he's successful and this doesn't flare up again, because obviously it's not a addiction problem. Right. It's just something that transpired over the offseason, and he got whipped for it. So now other guys should be aware of these kinds of things and not fall in the same place. And obviously, Joe, you'll be starting getting tested every week from this point on to the next 4 or 5 years. So it is what it is.
It won't take testing, Reggie. They took about $1.4 million from it.
I didn't make that my whole career. So the numbers are above me, brother.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, we fought for it. We went on strike as players, and then I'm glad guys are getting the opportunity.
I'm glad you said we're up against it, and I got to be quick with this. And the referee situation. Just your initial thoughts on it.
It hasn't affected most of the teams, but late in the year when you get to 8, 9, and 10, and there's a play call, there's a lot of calls that have been made that they're not right.
They're not right. The game's going too fast for them.
The hit with DeQuell Jackson yesterday, it's football. I mean, there's almost no way he can avoid making a tackle.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you go about
You're already here. There ain't many other places you can go.
Right.
But I just think the game's going too fast for him. I really do. I just think I have an uncle, and I can say this. I have an uncle that referees in the Big East.
Right.
And he always tells me, sometimes when he used to do the old Miami games, and he goes, when Miami was Miami, that was like an NFL practice, and it was fast.
Right.
He goes, some of these guys don't understand that. Reggie, I appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks a lot.
It was always great having you.
See you next Monday.
See you next Monday. We'll have this. Reggie's Rap is brought to you by Pat O'Brien Chevrolet. We appreciate all the phone calls. We appreciate everyone for being a part of the program today. Bruce will be back tomorrow. He'll talk a little Indians as the Indians return to action tomorrow, and I'm sure he'll have his takes on the Browns and the game against the Bengals as the Browns are preparing to take on the Buffalo Bills this Sunday at Cleveland Brown Stadium. For Gino and all the crew, I'll talk to everybody soon. See you. I love you, Cleveland. Isn't that what I'm supposed to say?